until I have my website completely designed in my mind, the office and the business cards and my ideal first 50 clients. And I'm like, they don't even get out of the gates. Paralysis by overanalysis. And I was like, well, is this the best or this? I work with a lot of companies and businesses that are looking to grow and build and sales teams. And you talk to a company and they have one person. I need to get a 401k and I need to make sure I have the best benefits for when I hire people, 3 years from now. And I'm like, do you have a website? Like, no, that's not important. I'm like, okay, are you an LLC, an S Corp? Is you like, no, that's not important. I'm like, okay, so you're going to worry about everything else other than that. And I think it's, again, going back to it, it's that paralysis by overanalysis. And I think sometimes you have to take that first and second step. Yes, you can still worry about and focus on what your end goal is, but step 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, and 30 don't come before step 1, 2, and 3. And I think so many people only look ahead and don't look right in front of them and say, okay, I'm going to take the first couple steps this week and next week and see what happens.
Welcome to Mission Control. At Peralta Design, we launch brands. But for now, let's launch right into this episode.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Please help me welcome the one and only Christopher J. Wirth. Chris, you are the founder and president of No Quit Living. Welcome.
I appreciate the opportunity. I love the studio as well as the color scheme.
Yes, I mean, we're on brand with the colors. So we got the right corporate colors on. I got your book out here, your cards. You got the shirt. You gave me the black one, so we're both kind of coordinating here with the tiles, and our studio audience is going wild, so I'm sure you brought enough parting gifts for everyone here.
I do. They're in the car or in the mail, whichever comes first.
One of the two, yeah. So I'd like to welcome also Jorge.
Your mama's favorite web developer?
Yo, mama.
Wow.
That's
aggressive.
I'm just speaking the truth. That's all.
Okay. And Kev on the soundboard.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. So, guys, let's dive right in because we've got so much to talk about here with the Olympics. The guy from Turkey, speaking of just having a random phone call and you have to show up, the guy from Turkey that just showed up and he's pointing his gun with no fancy sights or lasers or anything.
I absolutely love it. That guy's like my hero.
He's like an assassin or something.
My favorite thing is they say no one remembers who came in second place. I'm like, I don't know who came in first place. I just know the silver medal guy.
He could not be bothered. And there's a meme of him he was just sitting at a bar and some government official comes and he's like, we have one last job for you.
Or he was just that guy that growing up every single shooting game, they're like, you're amazing. And he's like, I've never touched a gun. I don't even know what a gun is. But they're like, all right, if you can do it on the computer or the screen, you can probably do it in the Olympics.
Well, they said he was like a Gen X or millennial, and he had like a Nintendo, the Nintendo gun.
The duck hunt. He's the world champion duck hunt 4 years in a row.
It finally came in handy, right? All those video game hours. But just that visual of him just pointing like he just couldn't be bothered was just hilarious. And I happened to catch the ping pong, man, Sweden versus China. And I never realized how intense table tennis is in the Olympics. It is legit.
It looks
insanity.
superhuman to me.
It is.
I can't even fathom the reaction time.
The one thing I think they should add is, if the guy or the girl against you celebrates too much, you should be able to slap them once. But it goes both ways. So then if you celebrate too much and you just have to take it.
So we incorporate that slapping contest, that game
that's
out there.
I was just about to say some of the craziest things on social media where they literally pay money and get paid to just smack the heck out of each other.
The slap fight, I can't get it over. A knockout from just that single one. Or
some of them they laugh and smile, but some people it looks like they're not going to wake up for a week or two.
Yeah, and the setup, the guy,
and then
he's lining up
and the whole thing.
One guy will do it once, and the other guy just does it 6 times, and you're just like, all right, just hit me already.
And the guy the ones that have their whole body weight comes in, it just destroys the person's whole face is just swollen.
And when they see it in slow motion, it's like And I don't know why they want to do that.
Yeah, just when you have beginning to have faith in humanity, we see that as a sport, and you wonder.
Well, isn't Dana White behind one of the leagues? I see him all the
I
time.
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But everything he turns into.
And let's bring it back into branding a little bit, because Snoop Dogg just continues to like reinvent himself.
Someone called him America's grandpa, and he's literally like just universally, everybody just loves this guy. But you never would have thought that knowing where he came from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where he started in the public eye to now.
Right.
What's that one album with the
Chronic?
Or the cartoon dog on the
Doggy style.
Yeah,
Doggy
like if you look at that,
Yeah.
and then he's very close with
Martha Stewart.
Martha Stewart.
Right.
They were on Ellen together. They were playing Never Have Ever, and he's got his television show about coaching football. Now they're like, hey, you know what? We're thinking about Olympic. Yeah, we got to get
In
Snoop
Paris.
out. We got to get Snoop
like,
into.
what were they smoking when they thought of like bringing him out? Then he's in equestrian gear.
It's absolutely incredible. Like he could
wear anything and do anything.
Speaking of branding, I love that little ad with him and Martha Stewart. They're advertising Bic lighters, and it's like for candles and more. Like it's
well, speaking of, they had him swimming with Michael Phelps, and we all know like that controversy where he was like wearing a gas mask, smoking weed during the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's like, talk about.
Also, that's something that I don't understand too, right? I get like, okay, steroids, you're gonna get banned, but if you are the fastest swimmer in the world, or there was that female sprinter, was it Shari Richards or whatever, where she got in trouble for smoking?
She got
2 years ago, right?
She got dragged for that.
And it's like, you're a sprinter. I'm like talking about like probably the opposite of performance enhancing, and you're still beating everybody and smoking weed.
And you're not at full lung capacity.
They should give her another medal for that. Like, she shouldn't be punished.
That's like they were talking about the same thing with swimming, and Michael Phelps are saying, that's not something that you do to enhance your sport. And I forget who it was. It was a comedian was talking about, they should have some of the baseball players smoke up before they go up to the plate, and just like nice and casual, and a 95-mile-an-hour fastball is coming at your head. And if you can hit it, then I think you get like double the runs or something for your team.
Don't they say that's one of the hardest things to do in all of sports is be able to just hit a fastball?
Hit a baseball, yeah.
If it mathematically, they shouldn't be able to.
Right.
Like how fast we.
Well, not only that, but also when pitchers are able to throw so many different variances of pitches. So like you have a 98-mile fastball, then you have a 68-mile knuckleball coming at you. But I think you should smoke up before, and I think that should be part of the Olympics is add that to certain sports and see who can really dominate.
And then Snoop Dogg can participate.
Yes.
He'll be one of our Olympians.
He ties in.
How old is he?
He was a torchbearer too. Right? He was like,
he's got to be
in. I
thought
thought
it
it was
was
in
60s.
60s.
he's got to be close to 60.
60s at this point.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
But he hasn't aged in like the last 30 years.
No, he's like formaldehyde.
Yeah.
He's like preserved from.
They're like he's 65 going on 31.
And shout out to the gymnasts. Simone Biles, the GOAT, and that whole team.
Talk about
they
excellence and
dominated.
continuing to do it. Like, geez Louise.
Yeah,
Have you seen that picture of her next to Shaq?
Yeah, she looks like she's a
She looks like his
tiny, like a
kneecap.
doll.
Yeah.
Like it's like one of those American girl dolls.
Yeah.
She's tiny, but what a powerhouse, and just the mental, not just the physical agility, but the mental strength that these athletes have to just control their bodies. And we won't go into the guy that lost the pole vault.
Oh my God. We said that guy simultaneously, he lost, but
And
he
won.
won.
And
At the
won.
same time.
And one. That's like, if your girl or wife tells you, honey, you have there's no chance of you losing. It's not a compliment. You got this.
You'll
You'll clear the pole.
You're still my favorite. Don't worry.
You see, he got an offer. What was it?
Did he?
$250,000.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Take it.
Yeah,
Take
take it. So and Chris, you just got here you were coaching somewhere just before this.
I was. Yep.
Where was that?
Up at UConn.
Okay. Tell us a little more.
Working with the women's lacrosse team this year.
Okay.
I do a lot of work with different college sports teams, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, but it's something that's really fun, but also challenging. And I thought it'd be a lot easier in some ways to get into it, where you just kind of send some emails and it's like, oh yeah. But the reality
It's actually
is
work. Yeah.
it's actually work times 10. But
Yeah.
I think you would attest to that. Anything in life that you accomplish, nothing happens easy, simple.
Nothing's easy.
And it's always 10 times usually the effort, the energy. that goes into it.
Yeah, and you've got that in your DNA. Your dad coached as well.
My dad coached, and I coached college basketball for a bunch of years, coached high school basketball and AU basketball as well. So it's, I think, inside me, but my dad coached me in everything growing up. And I think it's just something that is inside, not only just something I enjoy and love, but always being around different sports growing up. It just kind of wears, into your brain,
It's
your
part
mind.
of your fabric.
Yeah, it's like, and people ask, like, was there one thing? And I said, no, I just was always around different sports.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for us to dive into the no quit living, the positivity. Thanks for bringing these books. We can't wait to hear your story right after these words. Hey, by the way, we want to announce a new website that we're launching. It's called brandgreek.com. It's going to have all kind of D9 collateral. So it'll be your source for all things fraternity and sorority. We'll be producing chapter logos, chapter challenge coins, backdrops, step and repeats, retractables, even a website for like a charitable foundation that your organization might have, and more. So come check it out. Visit us at brandgreek.com. One and only Christopher J. Wirth, founder and president of No Quit Living. NQL in the house.
I love it. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's such an honor to be here. And I interviewed you a couple weeks ago. Your episode will actually come out after mine did, so it's fun to do a home and home.
Yeah. No, iron sharpens iron. And we met at the Latinos of Real Estate panel down in Stanford, and that was fun. It was fun working with you and kind of being like, kind of tag teaming the speaking engagement.
It was funny. I was talking to the lady out front, and I knew of you just because saw some of the promotions. Had never met you, and you were walking in, and you had Jordans on, and I was like, all right. I was like,
My new best friend.
I was like, I don't need to know much about this guy. I was like, I could not like anything he does. I was like, but right off the bat, I was like,
it was like Step Brothers.
Did we just become best friends?
Call me Night Ranger. Yeah, exactly. So tell us, man. Tell us how you built this brand, because I'm just looking through all your material here. The Positivity Tribe. We recently had Jessica Rivera here, who's a mindset coach. This kind of aligns with that. So, but I want to hear how this all came to be. How did you come to be, and share your story with us?
I came to be from my parents. They created me.
That's usually what happens.
No,
Kevin was made in a tube. No, okay.
No, Kevin came from like an egg from outer space.
Kevin was actually bought online. No, I think so many things in life come not by design, but just in so many different ways. And as I said earlier, I was a college athlete, coached college sports for a while, and I always had the coaching perspective inside me somewhere. And I run and still run a wealth management firm down in Greenwich. But a few years ago, I launched the No Quit Living podcast. I started doing a lot of speaking events. I was fortunate enough to work with a lot of corporations, individuals, and then it transitioned into working with a lot of college sports teams. And the four things that we focus on are culture, leadership, mindset, and accountability. And I think those four things can be in a classroom, they can be in a courtroom, they can be in a business, they can be on a field, on a court. And I didn't realize it at the time, back to my point about how things kind of come together, not always by design, but it was something I was very passionate about. And then the whole no quit living concept came about back in the early 2010s. I think I was subscribed to like 7 or 8 different quotes of the day emails. And one day email came across my desk with whichever one of the
Tony
quotes
Robbins
of the day
or something. Yeah.
No, and it's actually got a very, very simple and easy story, but Norman Vincent Peale has a quote, "It's always too early to quit." And I don't know what it was, but I was like, oh, that's cool. I printed it out. I think I put it up on my wall. Maybe 6 months later, I don't know why, I was just messing around on the Connecticut DMV website, and I was looking around. I was like, I wonder if No Quit is available for a license plate, and it was. So I ordered it. Like 3 weeks later, it came, slapped it on the car. A couple months later, I actually was transitioning my financial company, and I had the idea of No Quit Capital, and I was like, I don't really like. That's a little tough, little brash to like No Quit Capital. So I was messing around, and I created No Quit Living. And fast forward now, I've been very fortunate. We have the podcast. We've written some books. I have a second company, the Positivity Tribe, where we do our books from in a fable style. But it's been really interesting when you connect with like-minded people on different fronts. I think the one thing that I've realized is so many people are looking for motivation. So many people are looking for inspiration, and especially from the pandemic through now, we're just challenged in so many ways. And I think somebody, you'll probably appreciate this, make you laugh maybe. Somebody asked me back in 2019 and 2020, they said, who is somebody that's had a real profound impact on your life that you don't know, you've never met? And I said Donald Trump, and they were like, they looked at me like I had 6 heads, and I said no, I said I'm not pro or anti. I said, but the reason is, I said, because he brought to the forefront positivity, negativity, and just this whole craziness of fighting people. And during his election with Hillary Clinton, and now with Biden, and now with Kamala, it's just, you don't need to fight. You don't need to attack
everything's
somebody.
Fight. Everything's crass. Everything.
That's what it is. But it's on both sides now, and I think there's never been a more important time than today than to really focus on inspiring people, trying to get people in an encouraging way. And it's okay to have a difference of opinion. It's okay to stand on different sides of the fence, and you can do it without attacking that person or without offending them. And I think if we were able to take the attack out of politics, I think Republican, Democrat, Independent, I think we'd be in a much better place.
Yeah, well, we don't want to turn it into a political show, but there was a time where it was more uplifting on both sides.
Yeah,
for sure. But I love how you started kind of, say, building the brand, but you started taking steps towards, with the license plate and kind of knowing that, okay, it's like you hadn't had it figured out yet. And it's almost a lesson there of like, you don't need to have it all figured out to start.
That's a great point.
But you kind of had started planting the seeds for it. And I agree. I mean, especially with COVID, there was a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of fear. And it's definitely relatable to feel that positivity is needed. There's a lot of negativity out there, whether it's fear, whether it's hate. Definitely need more of it. And I imagine from a coaching background, maybe you growing up here, was your dad one of those like sideline coaches? There are 2 types, I think. There's the yellers that call kids all kind of names, and I've witnessed it.
I've had a couple of those.
You little piece of, and it's like the kid's 5, like chill out. Or there's the other guy that's like encouragement. What I'm gonna guess your dad was on the encouragement side.
Yeah, he was the guy, and still is the guy that's always trying to find a way. Mm-hmm. And you're down by 8 points in basketball, and it was never like, oh, we're gonna win no matter what. But it was like, we got a shot. Like, well, keep going. And obviously, those things that were instilled in me early led to what I do and why I do it. But I want to go back to one thing you said that really, really stood out to me is you said you don't have to have it all figured out. And so many people now, they only look at, okay, I need every single thing figured out. So until I have my website completely designed in my mind, and I have the office and the business cards and my ideal first 50 clients, and I'm like, no, you don't need to have now again, you have to have an idea and a plan and a strategy, but you don't have to have the next 10 years laid out day by day. And I think that's what stops so many people. They don't even get out of the gates. It's paralysis by overanalysis. And it's like, well, is this the best or this? Work as you do with your branding. I work with a lot of companies and businesses that are looking to grow and build, and sales teams. And, you talk to a company and they have one person, and that person says, okay, well, I need to get a 401k, and I need to make sure I have the best benefits for when I hire people, 3 years from now. And I'm like, do you have a website? Like, no, that's not important. I'm like, okay, are you an LLC at S Corp? Is you like, no, that's not important. I'm like, okay, so you're going to worry about everything else other than that. And I think it's, again, going back to it, it's that paralysis by overanalysis. And I think sometimes you have to take that first and second step. Yes, you can still worry about and focus on what your end goal is, but step 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, and 30 don't come before step 1, 2, and 3. And I think so many people only look ahead and don't look right in front of them and say, okay, I'm going to take the first couple steps this week and next week and see what happens.
Right. I think it's, I play a lot of golf, no surprise. Just focusing on your next shot. I think you could also be paralyzed by thinking back on all your failures, and that kind of can give you that hesitation of moving forward because you feel like, well, I'm not going to do anything else because the last time I tried to do this didn't work out or didn't pan out. And then, you could either be stuck in the past or you could be, like, to your point, stuck way ahead in the future. But I'm really curious about your coaching style. Is it influenced just by your dad, or have you kind of followed other coaches, and how have you translated coaching into this leadership and into the speaking?
Yeah, my dad definitely had a huge influence. I share this fun analogy. I think you'll probably agree with. If I were to sell my services to you for $100 and I could only keep what was just mine, I'd keep $20 and I have to pay out $80, 2 here, 5 there, 7 there. And I think so many people in today's day and age put themselves out as, this is all me, I did everything. Mm-hmm. And you look in, especially in sports world, so many people take little things from a coach, a teammate, an opponent, and someone that was in the game before them. Jordan talks a lot about George Gervin and Dr. J and those guys that were generations before him. And the same thing with LeBron James today. He gives Jordan a lot of credit. He gives those. He does, but we all know that Jordan's the GOAT. Look around at the
Jordashian.
Just another check in the box over here. That was great.
But I think we take things from others.
Right.
And I think a lot of people don't give credit, but I've had so many amazing mentors. I have 2 coaches myself right now that I've had for the last couple of years that continue to pour into me. And I've found that some of the most successful people that I look up to and try to emulate, they've had so many mentors and or coaches along the way. And some of them still have coaches and mentors and are involved in masterminds that they pay for in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, because it's back to what you said before about that iron sharpens iron perspective. Mm-hmm. I think I'm good at what I do. I know you're good at what you do, but I want to be better, and I want to surround myself with people that are ahead of me. I want to surround myself with people that have written New York Times bestselling books, and they've been, they have 100 million downloads on their podcast, because that's how you level up, right, as opposed to always staying where you are. And what's that saying? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. But it feels nice sometimes to be the smartest guy in the room, because then everyone's asking you questions.
Well, hopefully you're getting paid when that's happening.
But you're not going to level up. And if you're with the same people, you can't continue to rise. And I think so many people realize the value of taking information and knowledge from others.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, your career path, you mentioned wealth management. Is that what you went to school for, and then it's evolved into this new passion?
I did go to school for business. I was also a double major in drama, which ironically,
drama queen.
Drama definitely helped in so many ways. Not knowing, ironically, that being on stage, and as you know, being a speaker yourself, it's one of the most scary things for people. People literally say, I'd rather jump out of a plane, I'd rather have spiders crawl all over me than get up in the room and speak. And from the drama background, that never fazed me, because I was always fumbling my way through acting and directing classes. But I got into it after college. I still have the wealth management firm. I love what we do for our clients. But I was just always interested in other things. And going back to my father being a mentor, he always was someone that said, you can do whatever you want, right, and you can't do everything at once, but you can do different things. You can have different skill sets. You can have different interests. And I always admired speakers. And Zig Ziglar was somebody that was a mentor to me. I actually got to speak to him a couple times. We exchanged a bunch of handwritten notes when he was alive, and he poured into me. And he's to my definition, he's the greatest when it comes to personal development. Mm-hmm. But he was always telling me to go to seminars, to keep going to workshops, continue to read. He talks about Automobile University, which back in the day was you put a cassette in your car. But we have now with these things and these cell phones, we have access to anything within seconds. And like 70% of some of the best stuff, it's all free. Back in the day with Zig Ziglar, you'd have to go buy a cassette. You'd have to buy a physical book. And if you didn't have it, or they didn't have it at the bookstore, it would be like 2 or 3 weeks. And Zig told me a story one time that he ordered a book, back in the 70s or 80s, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Ziglar will be here, on the 21st of the month," and it was like
they didn't have Amazon.
They didn't have Amazon. They had FedEx. They didn't have. But now, right, if you don't want to wait for a book because you want to download audiobook, download ebook, you can get a podcast. So like for example, if I wanted to get some of your information and, you were coming to town in 2 or 3 weeks, I could just go on YouTube and say, okay, what can I get right now for free? And I think there's never been a better time when it comes to able to consume. But what I always teach people and I always challenge them on is, but what are you doing with that consumption? Because getting the most information, the best books, the best speakers, the best courses, and doing nothing with it, it's the same thing as not having a mentor, not having a coach. And I think so many people are in that phase of just consume. But what about that action? What are you doing next with what you have?
Right, absolutely. What was the light bulb moment where this became a business? What was your first kind of foray into monetizing this passion?
It was I went through a very difficult 2.5-year divorce from 2017 to the middle of 2019. And it was in the middle of 2018 where I got a couple of paid speaking offers in the real estate worlds first. And I always do a lot with realtors and coaching and a lot of sales training. And I was doing it kind of one-off. I had some friends that were realtors, friends that had maybe 6 or 10 realtors underneath them. And you get paid a little bit here and there. But I got my first big speaking event well over 100 people in attendance. And the light bulb went off where I said, I think I could be really good at this, first of all. But second of all, I said, there's obviously an opportunity to monetize this. But I think that goes back to the point about you don't have to have everything, that 10-year plan there. So you kind of fumble your way through it. You realize that, you can ask for an introduction. So who else do you know in this space? What about somebody in the mortgage world? And it really just lit a fire into me because it was something that I didn't have any background in regards to being a professional speaker or coach, but I saw some success just like I did in the sports world when I was in high school and college. And I realized that it's what you're going to make of it. And I realized that, yes, people will help with introductions and referrals, but nobody's just going to call you out of the blue and say, hey, here's your next 50 clients right here. Just all you got to do is show up. Now, it'd be great if that's the way it was, but it was that really difficult time during that divorce where I was working hard and I felt like, kicked in the stomach all the time. And there was just a lot of stress and pressure, but this was something that I was able to lean into. And I was on a podcast interview yesterday and I told the gentleman that it was a really good distraction. It didn't make the divorce or the process or the expense of it easier, faster, or more simple, but it was a really good distraction. And at the end of the divorce, not right away, but within the first 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was able to look back and realize that it happened for me as opposed to me. And it's really easy to say it now. It was hard to go through it, but I realized that during that, it was an opportunity that I was able to somehow during the darkest time really figure out and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to keep my head down and I'm going to keep going. And ironically, the whole no quit and the whole team no quit concept came from literally the darkest, the most difficult time of my life. So it's
like you had to take your own advice.
It's exactly like that. And you don't ever want to go through it, something like that. But I think if I was a successful business person in transition and made, 10 million in my first year, I don't know if people would be like, well, so what's your no quit story? Like, has everything been great? And be like, oh yeah, it's been awesome.
I think the founder of NVIDIA would agree with you. I think he's putting out a lot of content where he wants adversity to happen at his company. Like he wants his employees or his team to go through rough times because I think that's where you really, it's like the diamonds are formed under pressure. I think there's something there. And I think also from what I can hear, when you're going through a dark time or you're going through a challenge, pouring into others like you did, you called it a distraction, but it's almost you're getting out of your own self because you're focusing on helping others. So it gets you out of your own head, puts you in a more positive space to pour into others. I know it's counterintuitive, right? If you're going through something, you should be focused on yourself, but I think focusing on others during those dark times gives you purpose, gives you hope, gives you self-worth because you're feeling like you're helping other people. So I think that's awesome. And you've got a very strong digital footprint. Where are you getting this motivation to, put out content? Because they say it's discipline over motivation. I know there got to be some days where you're putting out a quote, but you might not be feeling it. Tell me about getting through those times.
Yeah, it's so awesome that you say that, because a lot of times people say, oh, you're always in a good mood, and, you're always there. And, I shared with you offline, I'm going through some very difficult stuff right now with both my parents. And, to be completely transparent, there are some days where, I don't want to do it. But one of the biggest things for me is, and I took this from Kobe and Jordan, and not in any way that I'm at their level, but what I absolutely loved about both of them, and they both shared this with their wives and friends and teammates, is that somebody in the arena bought tickets for their kids or for themselves, and they spent 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks saving up, and that might be the only time that they're going to see them play. And for me, I don't know, and we all don't know who watches, because the greatest part about social media is that there are a lot of people that are watching that really need it, and they're never going to tell you that they needed it. They're never going to post. They're never going to share it. They're just going to see it, and that might be the reason why they don't give up today.
Yeah.
And there are days where it's really difficult, but I've made a commitment to myself and to my team and to my kids that I'm always going to put it out there, especially on those days when I don't feel like it, because that is going to allow me to continue to build the brand and the message. So there will be a time like now, a year from now, 2 years from now, when someone's going to say, hey, you've always been putting stuff out. You're always consistent. Are you always in that frame of mind? And I'm proud to say that I'm not, because I think so many people on social media, they say the opposite, where everything's great, everything's amazing. And the worst and the best part about social media is that it's quick, it's instantaneous. That's the best part about it. You can get to anybody. But the worst part about it is people are putting their edited videos and their photos that they, use all these different programs, filters where they'll go literally to somewhere on the water, and they'll take 20 pictures and then come back to their phone or computer, and they'll spend an hour and then post that one that's completely edited with filters and different things. And what is that showing? That's not the reality.
No.
You go back to when we were kids, your parents would take a picture in the moment, and that was it. It wasn't, hold on, no, keep your, wait, timeout, ref, let him do this shot again. It was just like, and those to me are some of the best pictures, because that they're not edited. And I think for me, the people that I look up to on social media are the ones that are more real,
right,
and not worried about, well, is this what I should post because you're going to like it and I know you're going to make a comment, or is this what I really feel? And a lot of the things that I put out there and I post are things that I'm struggling with as well, because my hope is that somebody's going to see it and it's going to impact them, and then they're going to share it to a friend or to a coworker, and that might be the one reason where they're like, you know what, I'm not going to give up today, or you know what, I'm going to give my business or my relationship another try because I don't want to give up today.
So do you think that relatability and authenticity are core components to motivation, to inspiring someone else, where if someone can't connect to you, someone can't relate to your story, do you think they lack that ability to be inspired by you?
I think in some ways, yeah. And I think the other side of that coin is the people that we look up to, where we actually connect with, are the ones that we see or feel some connection. So maybe they're at a place we want to be, or maybe they've gone through a similar experience. But, going back to iron sharpens iron, attracts like. People that are in similar situations. So for example, we are unfortunately Mets fans. So you talk about, Mets.
You need a support group.
Mets,
we do.
Giants too, which
Mets,
is like
Giants.
that never happens.
But think about that for a second. I love when a Yankee fan's like, oh, I hate the Mets. I'm like, why would you hate the Mets? You've played us once in the World Series. You smacked us 4-1. Like, we should be hating you because you're literally right down the road and you have 712 World Series rings, and we have, negative 25 in the last 30 years. But again, it goes back to your point. I think it's a really good question, because if you can't relate to that person and you don't think that they're being authentic, you're probably not really going to want to spend time, energy, or buy their things. But if you see something in that person, you're like, man, like that person shared last week, really tough day, or their mom died, or, they're going through, really difficult divorce or something. That to me is something that's when you're vulnerable, is when you have those genuine connections, as opposed to a connection where you see somebody on social media from, states or countries away, as opposed to when you actually get into, finding out about someone, you're like, man, like that person, like he struggles as well.
So as a follow-up, I'm curious as to, you say, so no quit is the whole thing. And I'm curious as to where that, like, do you think about that as a time and a place? And talking about relatability and struggles, like that immediately just connected me that much more to you. And that in my own divorce, that became such more of a, like, we talk about like getting through like a dark time and no quit, right? Seeing those things that can inspire you. Like I always talk about, my kids are the thing that like got me through the whole, like, hey, you might see dad down, but never out, right? Like, how can I keep going, putting, one step in front of the other? But quit became part of it to a certain degree, where I had to decide to quit. Like, okay, this relationship isn't going to work. So there had to be a quit. There can't be no quit always. Similarly, Kevin is one of my best friends of 30 years, had to say to me, like, listen, I could let you crash on my couch for forever, but you're never gonna get over this. So you have to quit, like, having me be your crutch. Yeah. So I'm curious to know, like, where does the intersection happen between quit and no quit, and how do you use that maybe in your own messaging?
That's a great question that I get asked all the time, and it's funny because people see no quit or team no quit, and their immediate question is, or idea is like, oh, so you never quit ever. And I'm like, all right, so you're saying to me that you're in bankruptcy, you're now, stealing, and you're in jail. I said, no. I said, there's a point where you quit.
Oh, you're in recovery.
And you're like, I'm not going to quit. I'm like, you probably should. like, no, keep going. Like, you can beat AA like yourself. Like, that guy stopped drinking. He's a quitter. You drink more. But we laugh, but I get asked that all the time. I look at it very simple as this. Go to your divorce for a second. If you and your wife had one teeny little argument, like I'm talking the silliest thing ever, and you come in the house and you slam the door, you're like, you know what, forget this, like everything's gotta be perfect. And if you walk out and never talk to her or your kids again, that to me is quitting, because when something gets hard, that's the idea of quitting. Like, oh, this is a little bit difficult, I'm gonna quit. Versus, this doesn't work for me. Because you quit on, and I don't even like the way you, not to knock it, but you didn't quit per se in the relationship. You said, this relationship doesn't work for me and for you, but we still have kids and we need to move forward in a different relationship. So you go from a husband and wife or spouse and spouse to now we are co-parents. And it's very different. And I don't look at it as quitting, because knowing you enough, it wasn't that you had, one phone call that didn't get answered in a minute and you're like, you know what, this is terrible, like I'm filing for divorce. That to me is quitting. There's a gentleman, Michael Mayer, that was on my podcast early on, 7 Levels of Communication. He wrote a book that's a fantastic book, and he shared a story. He was running a marathon and he said, I got really tired. He said, I didn't want to keep going. He said, I wanted to stop, whether it's that 20-mile, they said there's all different.
You hit a wall.
You hit a wall. People say it's 20. Some people say it's 22. He said, I wasn't going to quit. He said, I slowed down. He said, I stopped. He said, I reassessed, took some water. He's like, and I kept going. And to me, that's the definition of that not quit, no quit mentality, is when life hits you, it's reassessing, maybe pivoting, but it's not quitting just because it's hard, or going back to the business perspective, like, oh, I launched a business on January 1st and I'm not a millionaire by February 1st. That would be quitting in the sense of like, all right, like it's not for me. Like, wait, so you're 1 month in and you're totally quitting because you're not a millionaire? But it's, how do I learn? How do I grow? And I love the way you worded it, because that to me is the definition of obstacles and challenges in life. Because nobody can ever say, oh, I started this and it was just success. And you talk about before, you mentioned, learning, and you don't learn always in the good times. You talk about the diamonds are created in very difficult situations. It's the same thing in life, business, and sports. I don't want to interview Tom Brady right when he's holding up the Super Bowl trophy. Kudos to him, and he was very, very, he earned those 7 Super Bowl titles. But I want to interview him the year he tore his knee, and that offseason, say, okay, what were you thinking? How did you get up when you literally had a cast on and you couldn't do it? Like, what was your mindset? Why were you able, how were you able to keep going? And I think so many people look at the successes and they're like, that's where everything's great. That's not where it's earned. That's when you physically receive that trophy. That's when you're interviewed on national television, but it's in the dark. It's on a Saturday practice at 8 a.m. when everybody else is sleeping. It's
After losing to Eli for a second time.
for a second time.
Yeah. Fist bump. Yeah, exactly. It's like, without getting too religious or even spiritual, the idea that anyone can have faith when times are good.
Oh,
Like, hey, yeah, thank you, God. I'm killing it. But it's like when you're in those dark, deep throes of doubt, and pain, and not seeing any light in front, that if you can have faith in those moments, that's where it matters.
I could not agree more. When business is going great, when
Yeah.
your relationship with whether a significant other, wife, husband, friends, when bank accounts great, when the market's
Right.
how hard is it to wake up and walk in and high five your
walking in
coworker?
like George Jefferson, yeah.
But you have an argument with your coworker, you go home mad, he goes home mad, and you see him the next morning. Like, that's when you have to have faith in the process. Okay, we're working on this together.
That's
All
right.
right, I know that we had an argument. Like, we'll get through it. Let's dap it up and keep going. But it's so easy to be happy
Right.
when it's 75 and sunny.
Right.
But when it's pouring and you're walking into a meeting and you get drenched on, like, what about then?
Right.
Like, are you only smiling when it's going well?
Exactly.
And then the other thing I think is always interesting is, are you smiling and cheering on your friends when they're succeeding? Or is there a piece of you that's like, hey, like, good job, I wish that was me, should have been me? Or are you genuinely saying, you know what, I'm happy for you, I'm proud of you, good job. And without anything else, like, I'm next, it's my turn, but just say, hey,
Right.
why don't you know you did a good job, I'm proud of you. And just leave it at that. And those to me are the challenges, because like you said, when it's sunny and 75 and business is going great, family, kid, like, it's easy to smile.
So you've got a podcast. I want to talk a little bit about it. No Quit Living. It's been rated in the top 50 in the categories of business, health, and self-help. Tell us a bit about that, and then tell us a little bit about these books that you've written.
Appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, interestingly, when I started the podcast, I was thinking business. I was in the business world, and I said, okay, we'll do a business podcast.
Wealth management.
I was always intrigued by people that were entrepreneurial, by makeup, and then were able to do different things. And then I realized that it's more along the lines of people we were interviewing. It was their no quit story, or a time where they could have given up or given in, but they didn't. And then learning from adversity. And I realized that I wanted to make the podcast something that was relatable to people from all walks of life. So had no design that it was going to be rated in business, health, and self-help, but it just kind of went that way. And we're very fortunate to have high school kids up to people in their 60s and 70s that listen to the show, because it's relatable in the sense that we want to share people's stories, both their successes, but also where they fell short and how did they learn from it. And my hope with every single podcast episode is that there are multiple people that are going to connect with something that the guest said, an idea, a concept, a book, a story, a strategy. And it's just been unbelievably fun and exciting, and, as you know, challenging to do a podcast. And we initially started with Tuesday and Thursday episodes, guest episodes each time. But about a year ago, we switched to Monday through Thursday. We have quick 1 to 4 minute solo episodes about an idea, concept, something I heard, something I read. And then we still have our guest interviews every Friday. And your guest interview is coming up in the month of September, which I'm really excited about. So we will definitely promote that as well.
Awesome. And the books, what inspired them?
The Positivity Tribe and then the Positivity Tribe in the Locker Room, I was motivated by a gentleman who's become a friend of mine by the name of John Gordon. He writes a lot of books in the fable world, and both of them have a little basketball theme within them, but it's all about inspiring people. And within both of the books, we have these things that are called positivity notes. We are about to pass 30,000 positivity notes in every state in the United States and in 6 different countries. And when I say we, I want to be very specific. I have not driven or flown to 50 states, nor have I flown to 4 other countries besides ours. But the whole idea of both the books and the positivity notes are inspiring somebody, inspiring one person every day. And what we started with those notes, and not really thinking too much about it, is we were putting them on under the windshield wipers in cars. And it was just to literally inspire somebody. And ironically, we got so many direct messages where people said, you know, I can't tell you, I'm walking out to my car and I'm swearing under my breath and I'm like, where's that cop? I'm gonna not thinking that
Road
the
rage or
white
something.
ticket was a parking ticket.
They thought it was a ticket.
And then they said that I go up and I'm mad, I'm pissed off, I'm swearing, and I look at it and it says something like, "Hey, like today's your
I love
day."
you.
And they're like, "What the?" So full and fair disclosure. And then ironically, what we found is a couple people actually did get parking tickets. While they had a note, so we've actually had a couple pictures posted
Or it's both.
on Instagram where people said like, I got a ticket, but I also got a positivity note. And
Kinda balances each other
and I
out.
have to say, full and fair disclosure, I've never put a positivity note after a ticket. So if they have ever happened, it's been after, but I've never gone up to a car and be like, oh, hey, cool ticket. Here's a little positivity note. Because I think that's just kicking somebody when they're down. But it was before the pandemic had happened. We started doing them in 2019. Obviously, we had no idea that the pandemic was gonna come, but I think the one thing that we've seen during this whole crazy 4+ years now is that you can look at every single situation in a positive way or a negative way. And I think by default, so many people always approach the glass as half empty. And I just think it's not the way to go through life. It doesn't mean that everything is great and you go about every day like it's wonderful, but there's always some good in every single day. And I'll tell you, going through my divorce and having depositions and different really difficult times, I still was able to always find something positive every day. And my kids were definitely part of it. And one of the things that I didn't share before during this, and you asked about the no quit question, is in 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, when my kids have kids or great grandkids, I want my kids to always look back and be able to say that even during a really difficult time when mom and dad weren't getting along, Dad never quit. He always showed up, even during his most difficult time. We had games, we had concerts. He was there, and he always did it with a positive attitude. Doesn't mean that inside I wasn't struggling and I was having a tough day, but when I was with them or I was about to see them, I was able to say to myself, all right, for the next 2 hours at this game or their recital at school, I'm just going to give my best attitude. And it's been something that I want to leave as my legacy, but I'm glad you mentioned that before because I did want to touch on that.
Awesome. And please share, the ideal client that would hire you for speaking, maybe an organization, and the type of guests that you'd like to have on your show. And then, of course, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
I appreciate that. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Ideal client, ironically, is the core four: the culture, leadership, mindset, and accountability. A company, a sports team, an individual that's looking to really enhance those things within their company, within their team, within themselves. We do a lot of work, as I said, with college sports teams, all different sports. We do a lot with businesses, Fortune 500, Fortune 400. We have a couple of Fortune 200 clients that we've had the opportunity to work with. And we do a lot in the sales world, both real estate and financial services. And as far as guests on the show, for me, it's kind of that iron sharpens iron piece where people that are like-minded, that understand the value of personal development and sharing knowledge with others. A lot of times it's people that have a fun or really difficult no-quit story that hopefully a listener will say, wow, that's going to be the reason why I'm not going to give up. And then best way people can find me is the two websites, noquitliving.com or thepositivitytribe.com. And then I always share my personal email address because I just love connecting with new people. It's chris@noquitliving.com. And I hope that somebody heard something or saw something today that connected with them. And maybe it's a question you guys asked or you asked. But to me, it's all about just leveling up with people that you get the opportunity to spend time with.
Awesome. And can you just wrap us up here with an affirmation or something positive that would motivate someone out there that may be just going through some challenging times?
I think going back to the GOAT, Zig Ziglar, you don't have to be great to start, but you always have to start to be great. And I think so many people don't start. They talk about it, they think about it, and going back to what I said about having that perfect runway over the next 10 years. If there's an idea, if there's a concept, if there's a book you want to write, a podcast you want to start, don't focus on or worry about million downloads. Focus on launching the first episode, the second episode, and hopefully there's somebody out there that's going to go ahead and do that one thing today that they've been thinking about or talking about the last month or two with their friends.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Love the brand, love the colors. NoQuitLiving.com. Make sure you check out Chris. Chris, thank you for being here.
I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being here with us on this episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is your host, Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch